Australia's shaky economy. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I have my evening stein of coffee and I thought we'd have a look at this article from the ABC discussing some of the fundamental issues that are in the Australian economy. Issues that were present before we had these disasters really. The bushfires, the illness spreading around the world affecting trade. There's some fundamental problems with the economy. I mean, I'll just bring up our growth, our GDP growth. Hasn't been looking too good. We've actually been below trend since the GFC. Yeah. So let's have a look at this. Australia's economy was not in perfect health for the bushfires or the illness. The Reserve Bank of Australia knows part of its job is keeping confidence high. Is it? Because cutting the cash rate doesn't seem to be doing much for consumer confidence. They're both looking pretty bad. And business confidence is tanking as well. So, okay. I thought their job was to make economic predictions and make decisions based on those predictions to help steer the centrally planned economy in the right direction. Yeah. What do you think, guys? Let me know what you think their job is in the description below. If people are confident, they're more likely to spend more, and their spending will boost activity and create a feedback loop of growth. During an economic crisis, the need to inspire confidence becomes paramount. Well, yes, and I feel our leaders aren't doing that particularly well. Frankly, I think that was Trump's one skill that he could deploy better than anyone else in the States. He could inspire confidence in his base. We'll have to see how this goes with the economy this coming year. But in crisis management theory, one of the most important things a leader can do during a crisis is be honest about the situation. And trust is critical. Evidence shows people are likelier to listen to a leader if they trust them. They're also more willing to make sacrifices for the common good. It's a conundrum for political leaders. Today, the illness continues to spread in Australia, and fears of a recession are mounting. Well, here you go, guys. Do you think our political leaders have trust? Do you think people trust them? Do you think would people be willing to make sacrifices for the common good? Perhaps we're seeing I think I saw footage on Twitter of a big fight down in Melbourne at a Woolies. People are fighting over food. They're fighting over toilet paper. They're starting to descend into their tribal groups. We're seeing more segregation along traditional lines. We'll have to see what happens, guys. We'll have to see what happens. How can our leaders build trust? What do you think? I'd like your suggestions. Let me know, guys. Prime Minister Scott Morrison expected to announce economic stimulus package later this week, which he did. On Tuesday, implored a business audience in Sydney to become patriotic to sacrifice for Team Australia. Whatever you thought 2020 was going to be about, think again, Mr. Morrison said. We now have one goal together this year to protect the health, the well-being and livelihoods of Australians through this global crisis and to ensure that when the recovery comes, and it will, we are well positioned to bounce back strongly on the other side. Now, my one concern is I would like to have seen, or maybe there still is time, for these stimulus measures that they've put through evolve into systematic changes to our tax legislation and some other issues here in Australia. Ways to free up the market more. Maybe scale back unnecessary parts of government. Maybe allow people to innovate and take risks. Maybe make it easier for people to be employed and people to cut rid of dead weight employees. That would be good. That would be encouraging. We'll see. We'll see if we'll see that. Maybe I'm a bit skeptical because it just seems like they're printing money and doing the same old thing. We need you to support your workers by keeping them employed. Hold on to your people because you will need them on the bounce back on the other side. Well, this is the question. How long will this take? I mean, if Australia has been doing pretty badly, the construction sector is doing not too well. If we hit, 1 quarter, 2 quarters of recession, everything's contained, and then we lift up again at the third quarter of this year, the beginning of next financial year perhaps, or the last quarter of this year? Could that be it? Could businesses afford to hold on to people for that long? Will they take the moves necessary to make short-term hits to the economy so it doesn't drag on? That's the problem. So China can't cushion the blow like during the GFC, which Morrison said. And that's true. That's true. Everyone who thinks Rudd was a miracle worker by giving you $900 and his building education revolution, remember two things. Our education quality and results has gone down since then. I mean, look at our maths, science, and reading achievements. And the money handed out to everyone. Well, come on, guys. That doesn't really work that well. It doesn't really work. It doesn't lead to investment. How much of that has been spent on stuff that was brought in from overseas? How lucky were we that China ramped up their expansion and bought our natural resources? That's what it was. He also wanted people to recognize how tough times, or how tough things were going to be for his government in comparison to what Rudd faced during the GFC. The illness is a global health crisis, but it will also have very real and very significant economic impacts, potentially greater than the GFC, especially for Australia, he said. The epicenter of this crisis, as opposed to that, is much closer to home. The GFC impacts were centered on the North Atlantic, and back then China was in a position to cushion the blow for Australia. He then argued that Australia's economy was in good health last year before the fires and the illness. He said employment growth was strong, there had been tax cuts for individuals and businesses, there had been billions of dollars in infrastructure spending, low interest rates, strong trade, rising house prices, and a pickup in growth from 1.8% to 2.2%. Internationally, he said, the US-China trade war had simmered down, the prospect of an orderly Brexit had risen, and there was very early positive signs in manufacturing activity and trade improvements. In short, we were heading into 2020 with growing domestic and international momentum out of last year, he said. For evidence, he cited RBA Governor Philip Lowe, who said in September last year that Australia's economy seemed to have reached a gentle turning point after a soft patch in 2018. So why some economists don't see a rosy picture? However, more than a few economists say the state of the economy was not that rosy heading into this crisis. And what do you think, everyone? Would you agree that it wasn't that rosy heading into this crisis? I certainly would. I guess it's the industry that I'm in and seeing, what sectors are going on. Let us know your opinions in the comments. However, more than a few economists say the state of the economy was not that rosy heading into this crisis. They point to other statistics, like the unemployment rate, which had risen from 4.9% to 5.3% since February last year. And if you look at the Roy Morgan methodology, they're saying it's 9.7. And what's more concerning, and what they should be reporting on, is the unemployment and the underemployment rate. Those two need to be combined, and that's what needs to be addressed. If unemployment stays the same but underemployment increases, that's even worse. They said households have not been feeling confident with income stagnation. Since 2014 September quarter, the average real disposable income of Australian households has slipped backwards from $50,325 to $50,063. They say household consumption, which makes up 56% of the economy, has been on a downhill slide since 2018 March quarter, when it was growing at 3%. By the December quarter, consumption growth had fallen to a paltry annual 1.2%. There you go. Retail sales tell a similar story. Despite last year's tax cuts, retail sales contracted over December and January by 0.7% and 0.3%. The first time since mid-2017 that retail sales have dropped for 2 consecutive months. Consumption started to sputter even before the illness started to spread in Australia in earnest. Ben Udi from Capital Economics said, "We think that the widespread weakness in activity will weigh on the labour market and cause the unemployment rate to surge to 5.7% before long. So the June quarter data to expose just how fragile we are." Westpac chief economist Bill Evans warned this week that the economy was already weak before the outbreak. The economy will be dealing with the impact of the illness when it is a relatively fragile state, with growth in 2019 at 2.2% compared to a potential of 2.75%, he wrote. In particular, consumer spending has been insipid, with the annualized pace rate running at only 1% in the second half of 2020. This means that consumer spending is likely to be less resilient to shocks than if momentum had been robust. So, I mean, a lot of people are going to be receiving a cash stimulus handout, free money at the end of the month, $750. Now, how many people do you think will go and use that for additional spending? Or will it go to something they'd already planned to purchase? Will it be like my mother, a pensioner, who's just going to spend it on her body corporate management fees? Or will people stash it away? They'll stash it away and save. A lot of them will if they're worried. Or they'll put it aside for food or bills or new equipment. We'll have to see. We'll definitely have to see. He said the economy's pre-existing fragility would reveal itself in the June quarter data, whereas exports, tourism, foreign students, agriculture and resources, and inventories, disrupted supply chains will explain the major shocks in the March quarter, given the exposure to the Chinese economy. The June quarter contraction will be dominated by Australia's and the rest of the world's exposure to the illness and the lagged effect of China's recession in the March quarter, he said. So why would the government want people to think that the economy will be more resilient during this crisis than the data may suggest? In 1936, the British economist John Maynard Keynes coined the term animal spirits to describe how people make financial decisions, including panic selling and buying during bouts of severe economic uncertainty. Well, I'd suggest we've seen that in our shopping centres just with goods that people are hoarding and buying. The animal spirits are getting worried. He believed households and business confidence could spur or hamper economic activity, and he was right. For the rest of the 20th century, economists increasingly came to understand how profoundly important confidence was for economic activity, and central banks assumed the role of confidence whisperers. Some governments have tried to behave similarly, and can they succeed? Well, this is where I make the argument that economists need to understand psychology more. The division between micro and macro as well. I think Austrian economics has more to teach us, and we need to look at it closer, particularly when making decisions and trying to plan how the economy works. Because we'll have to see. I think confidence is shattered. Once we get negative data, if we get another cash rate cut, guys, what do you think? Let us know in the comments your predictions for next month. What do you think that will do to confidence? What about if Australia starts QE? We'll have to see. Do you think the average punter will realise that that'll start reducing their purchasing power, essentially robbing them of their savings bit by bit? Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. As always, leave your comments and opinions down below. If you're a fan of the channel and you want to support us, please share the videos. Help the channel grow, get the videos out there. You can support us financially via our Patreon or by joining the channel here on YouTube. You can also use our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay for your consumer purchases, or Independent Reserve and Kucoin for the crypto trades you make. We receive either an advertiser's commission or a small share of the fee that you pay anyway. It's a great way if you use those services to support content creators without incurring any cost. We also have merch that we sell from the HeiseSays website available. You can see behind me the pocket squares available from the link below. And finally, PayPal if you want to contribute that way. Thanks everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you later. Bye for now.